to all my YouTube friends out there. Welcome to the N9TAX Retro Lab. In today's video, we're going to take a look at how to turn an ordinary Cisco router into a telephone company and a dial-up internet service provider. This is going to be a really exciting video. I'm going to show you everything that you need to do it and share the config with you. So stay tuned and let's get started. Okay, so this is a Cisco 2811 router. Nothing special about it, really. You know, they were used for a lot of different purposes, but Cisco routers are capable of quite a number of really interesting things and beyond anything I ever realized. So let me go through the features of what we have just as this thing is out of the box. On the front of the router here, we have a few ports. We have some USB ports, we have an aux port, a console port. This obviously over here is your port to plug in power. You know, just like the back of your computer, switch to turn it on and off. And then we have a compact flash card. Now this is important because this is what houses your configuration and it houses the software that this router runs. So that's the front side. Now let's flip around to the back. Okay, this is the back side of the router. Now it's not too interesting really what's going on there right now, but trust me, these things are very configurable. So over here we have a couple of fast Ethernet ports, and yeah, this isn't a gig router, but it really doesn't need to be, considering what we're going to do with it. We're really, you know, going to achieve like 33.6 on our dial-up modem, so fast Ethernet's going to be plenty fast to get some internet into this router. There are some expansion slots here. This card here happens to be a T1 card. This card here is a serial card that offers 16 serial ports, and they're just standard UART serial ports. We're not going to get into what this card does today, but this is just how this router was as I received it. Now over here, you'll see these two screws here. This is a larger port. In future videos, we will get into what you can do in these big ports, but today we're going to focus on what's called the ewic ports. And what these stand for is high-speed WAN interface card. There are cards to do all manner of things. Let's actually take a look at, and this is one of the things that some of the videos online really don't get into, is what do I need to put in these slots, what do I need to put inside of this router, and what do I need totally in order to get this thing done. Alright, so here is a Cisco web page that is dealing with the 2800 series routers. You see our 2811 is in the router models 2801, 21, 2851, there's different route. You can do this with 2600s, and you can even do it in the 2900 series, and I'm sure there's other series of routers that are capable of doing this, but I just happen to have 2800s. The configurations are very similar if you have a 2600 router. So if we go down, we'll see our router here. This one here has this is a 2801, so it doesn't have the large the big slot on the back that we were looking at here a moment ago. It does have some of the ewic slots. Let's look down. So here's the 2811. This is our router. So here's the big network module port, and here are the 4 ewic ports and our 2 fast Ethernet ports. If we go, we'll see that, you know, these high-speed WAN interface are slot 0, 1, 2, and 3, fast Ethernet 0 and 1, and then the network module enhanced NME slot, which is this big one here, and that's there are cards that can go in there that we could do telephony with as well. But let's just focus on getting a simple config done today. So let's scroll down here. Okay, so here's the first one. The ewic 1AM and the ewic 2AM card. These are the analog modems that I spoke about. We'll need to use to do the dial-up. The reason I wanted to show you this page is because one of the things I didn't understand when I started buying these cards is, one, you know, what cards work in what router, and what cards, you know, and what software do I need in the router in order to make this card work, because that's very important. You know, the first couple of times I put cards in the router, they didn't come up and work, but, you know, I had to get a certain iOS version, and Cisco calls their stuff iOS. So if you see here, and this is this is really hard to look at because of the way that the web page is, but so you see the 1600, it's not supported. The 1700, you need 12.24. 1800, you need 12.38. 2600, you need 12.2. Some of these other ones. So 2800 here, we need 12.38 T4 or newer. Now this is important because this is the software that's going to run on the router. If we don't have this right version in here, or a version that's new enough, the other thing that you need in order to do telephony is you need a version of the software that is capable of doing telephony, and I will show you that later. Can't tell you where to get Cisco iOS, but let's just say it is out there on the web. You'll have to search around for it. You shouldn't have any problem finding it, asking some people in some forums, whatever. Yeah, so here's one of these larger network modules I was talking about. This one here, the EVM8 8FXS DID module. This one happens to be the one that this will do, and I'm going to do a future video about this module because I use this module myself. It breaks out 24 phone lines in a Amphenol connector. So the old telco Amphenol connector that you could take out to a breakout box, or you could take to a punch down block or something like that and distribute the lines. So back to the modems real quick. WIC 1AMs, this is the craziest thing. WIC 1AMs have one modem, so you'll see line 0 and phone. You can plug a handset in on the other side of this, and it will be able to use the line that this is plugged into when you're not using the modem, so that's kind of useful. If you wanted more than one modems, they do make this WIC 2AM card. Unfortunately, these here are like $10 a piece on eBay right now, and these here are like $200 and some a piece. I don't know why these are so expensive. Maybe they're just rare. Okay, so the other card that we're going to need is a card that supports FSS, which is Foreign Exchange Station. Foreign Exchange Station ports, as it says right here, see, 4-port FXS voice fax interface card is used to connect directly to phones, fax machines, and key systems. Generates battery polarity, reversal, and caller ID. These are, you can get 2FXS, as you see here. There's also these FXOs. FXO stands for Foreign Exchange Office. These are the ones that are used to call out. So if you wanted to like put your router on an actual phone line and call out to other phones that are on the phone system, that you would want an FXO card. But for today, what we need is an FXS card. So the 2s aren't really worth dealing with because I don't even see that many of them out there for sale. And the 4s are, I've been getting them for 10, 12 bucks a piece. So they're really inexpensive cards, and they're easy to find. They're all over eBay. They've probably made bazillions of these. Again, it'll tell you here, 2800 series routers here, 12.38 T4, or newer software will be required on the router in order to get this card running. So, yeah, let's take a look at some of the actual cards now that we're going to be putting in this router and see what they look like. This is the first card that we looked at. Let's see, they get that to focus there. This is the WIC 1AM V2 card. This has one phone line right here and then a phone pass-through over here that you can put your handset on. And, it just looks like a little card. It has a, sorry, it's hard to get that to focus, but it has a little plug adapter on the back, and it slides into these WIC ports on the front of this router. So we're going to use one of those. Another thing that we're going to use is the other one that I showed you here. Let me get it out of the bag. This is the 4 FSS card. So this has our 4, come on, focus. There you go. This has our 4 telephone line slots that we will be able to put phones into, and apparently it gets hot because it has quite the heat sink on the top of it. And again, this is going to slip into one of our WIC slots here in the front of the router. So you might think, well, that's it. We got our cards. We put them in there. We put the right software on there. We're good to go. Not so fast. There is one other thing that we need in order to make this work, And this is what I'm talking about, having all of the pieces to fit this together. This is called a PVDM module. And what this is a digital signal processor. Now I know we're talking about analog phone lines, and I don't know exactly what this is needed for or what it does in the system, but this one is a 16. I don't know if you can see that there, if I could get that to focus on the label. Probably not. PVDM 2-16. Now, that's another thing you got to be careful of too. The 2600 and 2800 routers, I believe both will handle the PVDM 2s. I know if you go to a 2900 router, you'll need a PVDM 3. So there are differences, and yeah, the devil, you know, as they say, is in the details. So before we get started and fire this thing up, let's go ahead and plug in our cards, and that way we'll be 100% ready to go ahead and build our configuration and get this router running. Now, the cards go in really easy, and we'll do that right now together with one hand so I can use the other one with the camera. The slots on any router are labeled right to left, bottom to top, so completely backwards from any normalcy that you might understand, and that's definitely the Cisco mantra. All you do is loosen these little set screws here on the corners, or set screws or hold-in screws or whatever you want to call them, and we're going to pull out this serial card that we don't need, and that's it. It just pops right out. We'll set that off to the side. Now we're going to put our modem, or our FXS, wants to tongue twist me every time I try to say that, sorry. We're going to put this FXS card over here on this side, and lo and behold, this is something that got me. Oh, look. On this card, they've decided to put security Torx screws. Isn't that nice? That was definitely wonderful of them. And somewhere around here, I have my security Torx bit. And let me find that real quick. Okay, I'm back with the security Torx bit, since we can't use the screw gun for this one, and I'll go ahead and tighten these in. I doubt you want one of these cards pulling out in operation, so probably a good idea to make up the screws. All right, let's pull this old T1 card out, because we won't be using that either. It'll simplify the config to not have all these cards in here, because when you put cards in, Cisco, the hardware will add to the configuration the ports and things that card is set up for. So the less cards if you don't need a card in there, you shouldn't put it in there. So again, those slide in real easy like that, and then just a simple tighten up the screws. Don't have to do it real hard or anything, because they're there we are, nice and secure. So there's our configuration, and what we'll be able to do is we'll have, again, they're labeled right to left, bottom to top. Yay, Cisco. 0, 1, 2, and 3 in ewic slot 0. So when we get into our configuration, this is going to be like, and this whole module is 0, because if you go over here and look at this module here, see this 1? This is the module 1 slot. Again, think about this as a big module all together with these cards, and this is another big module here. So this is module 0, this is module 1. Module 0, submodule 0, port 0. So in the configuration, this will be 0/0/0. This will be 0/0/1, and so on. And then this will be, this is ewic 1, so it's module 0, submodule 1, and then there's only one line, 0, so that's a 0. So it's 0, 1, 0 will be how this one is addressed inside the config. We'll look at that a little bit here, and that's kind of the way that Cisco does things. Not sure why, but there you'll have it. Now, our PVDM. What do we do with that? This looks like a piece of RAM, so it probably goes inside. Let me get the cover off of this, and then we'll take a look. And I'm not going to video it, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and then the cover slides back and pops off. So let me get this cover off, and then we'll take a look inside. Okay, we're back here inside of our lovely router, and as you can see, there's lots of goodies going on inside here. I'll go over real quick what we got here. So this big open slot here is where the network module card will slide into. This big slot right here, again, this is our module 1 or 0, right, where our ewic slots are. So, and as we go around the board, of course, there's processors and things like that. But what we're concerned mostly about here is in the back. This is RAM. Now, on these units, if you have to add RAM to them, they do have 2 RAM slots. So you can upgrade the RAM. This one has 256 megs. For just a few lines like this isn't going to be a problem. If you really expanded this system out when you were using it for SIP and all kinds of other things like that, you might want to throw another 256 in here. For 4 phone lines and a modem, this 256 is going to be plenty for this thing. These are called what is it? It's AIM slots. There are modules that can go here and here that do various things, from telephony to they even make modules for, like, if you're doing call manager stuff, they can hold voicemail and all kinds of stuff. I really never knew that these Cisco routers could do all of these things until I got into this home lab telephony, and I will tell you, these things are really cool. I mean, they'll do so much nifty stuff. This ribbon cable up here is just going to a small board that has the compact flash card on it, so that's like, I guess, having a drive and a drive bay on an old computer would be. These slots back here, though, this is what we're really going to concern ourselves with. And I don't know if you could read that there, but it says PVDM0 and PVDM1. This is where the digital the DSP modules go, and really this is, if you ever put 72-pin RAM in a computer, you kind of put it in at an angle like that, and then just turn it until it clicks in place, and you've installed it. And yeah, they're literally I think, was it 72-pin RAM? Maybe that's shared that same slot. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks a lot like it. And yeah. So there you go, and these are more like the bigger DIMMs that newer machines use. This is actually, it's DDR RAM. You can't use regular RAM. You have to use server RAM though, because it's ECC RAM, which is like error correcting RAM that they use in servers. So regular PC RAM won't actually work in here unless it's out of like a workstation PC that uses that ECC RAM. So that's about it. This power supply back here. You got various fans along the side over here, and other than that, I mean, the PVDM and the RAM is probably the only 2 things we need to concern ourselves with inside of this thing. So let's get her buttoned up and let's turn it on and see what happens. Okay, so at this point we need to concern ourselves with the front side of the router here. Now we're interested in this console port. Now, I don't know, many of you have ever seen these before, but Cisco has these light blue cables, and it actually matches the little color on the word console there. And you can buy these aftermarket that have USB on one end, but all the Cisco ones had serial ports. Don't think you could do it on this router, but I know some of the newer ones will have, because these are A ports. I think these are for putting flash drives in here. So some of the newer ones will have the B side of a micro USB, or no, mini USB, and you can actually just use a USB cable. But for these older routers, we have to use one of these blue Cisco console cables, and this is one with the USB. I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in right there, and it's real simple. That we also need a power cord. Let's get that, and put our power cord here in the other end. Flip our button, and we can hear these lovely fans spin up. On the terminal, we've got system booting. It's decompressing the image. This is all pretty boring stuff, really, and not. We'll get into some stuff here real quick, though, that is interesting. We haven't upgraded the software on this. This has a 12.44 T4. Now, if you remember, we needed a 12... What did we need? Well, we needed 12.38, so this one might actually be fine. But it's probably... What does it say? This is IP base K9. So what that means is this thing is not going to have the information that is needed to run any of these modules we just put in. And the reason I went ahead and booted this before upgrading the software is because I wanted to show you, that if you don't have the right software in here, this thing's gonna not work correctly for you. And one of the downsides with these Cisco routers is they are a little bit slow to boot. So we'll give this a moment to do its little thing and get going here. Okay, we've got, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog? Nah, we're not going to do that, so just hit no. And so now we have press return to get started. So hit return, see a bunch of this stuff come up. Let's see what it says here. I see fast Ethernet ports have come up. And I see not a whole lot, really. And if we had the right software in here, we would see all of our FXS lines come up and things like that. So right now we don't have any of that. We do enable, and you have to do an EN, which is enable, to really do any commands to the router. I'm not sure what you even do in the non-enabled login. I think you could look at a few things, but nothing spectacular. So let's show. And incidentally, if you type like SH and hit tab, it will complete the word for you. You see that there? Let's show inventory. Now that will show us what's in this chassis right now. So it does see the WAN interface card, one port analog modem, but I am not seeing the FSS card. And I'm also not seeing the PVDM. I believe we should be seeing all of that stuff if we had the right software in here. So let's do another show command, which is we're going to show run, which is show the running configuration, and that'll show you everything that's going on inside of this. And most of this you don't need to worry about, but there are some interesting things in here. So here's your Ethernet interfaces. This Async 010. Remember we talked about that being in slot 1 inside of module 0, and it is the first thing, which is 0. So this we know because it's 010 is our modem. Now what I don't see here are any of our FXS. So let's figure out how to get those working. Now, one of the problems that we're going to run into with this router is I believe this only has a 64 meg card in it, and I'm not sure that I can put the version of software on here that I want to put on here. I think we can probably put a voice software on a 64 though, and that should allow us to do what we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this router back off. Okay, so here we have our file browser, and we're going to look at all these different images that are available for the 2800 series routers. If you can see that there. What I've been putting on these in order to get them working is where is it at? The Advanced Enterprise 9, 12.4.15. I think I was using this T14. It's 53.6 megs. So in our 64, I think we're going to be just a little bit close. Let's look at what we got in there. If I look at the properties of that. So there's 20 megs free, 44.5 used. If I delete IP base out of there, I hate that everything needs a trash can nowadays. I really hate that. So let's see here. We go back where we were. and find our 12.4 15T14. I mean, we can use 15T6 too. These things, there's a whole like magic decoder wheel to figure out what these T's and 5s and 6s and all of these things mean. And I read it for an hour and I still don't understand what in the world, you know. It's all these different like sub releases and things like that. But what we're interested in though is something that will fit on this card. So let's take a look again. See, there's only 37 megs free. We may have to get ourselves a bigger card. What's taking up so much room on this thing? See, I don't want to delete any of these, like secure desktop iOS. I don't know if it needs any of this. 16 megs. Oh, there's another old config on here that they left on here. Let's delete the trash can again. Oh, let's check our, where are we at? 53.5 megs free. Okay. Let's see if that's good enough to get one of these on here. If not, we're going to have to format a card. So, incidentally, you know, the way you're supposed to do this is you're supposed to set up like a TFTP server, you get inside of the router and download this file onto the card. I don't know why everybody tells you to do that, man. I just take the card out, I put it in my compact flash slot, and put the file on it. Now, you can't format it with a computer. So, if you have to get a new card, you're going to have to put it in the router and format it in the router, which isn't really a big deal. And then you can take it out and put it in your computer and put the file on it. I don't know why everybody is bent on, you know, using the, what do you call it? So the other option here is if we can't fit an advanced enterprise on our thing, there's a, let's go on it. There's these IP voice. If you see these here, these IP voices ones, I believe will also do what we need. And you'll see that they're smaller too. So the advanced enterprise gives you a lot of features, probably features that we're not going to use. So, all right, I'm back. Well, I had to put a different iOS version on that card. I had to go with one of the IP voice ones. Apparently the little T's and gizzards at the end of that mean something. And the one that I put on there did not support the FXS card. This is probably the most challenging thing about using Cisco gear, is trying to figure out which one of these stupid iOSs are going to give you the features that you need. But now you can see, if you're looking at the terminal window here, that we now have foreign exchange stations 000, 001, 002, and 003. And they have changed state to up. So, before I go any farther here, let's do a little experiment. And all I want to show you is what to expect when you get this thing fired up. So, I'm going to go ahead and grab phone and a phone. Sorry. And some phone wires. Because if my calculations are correct, we can plug into one of these ports here. And I'm still not a big fan of telephone cords. I don't like that they're flat, and if we pick this up, I'll hold that up to the mic. I'm sure you can hear that. Hear the dial tone there? We have dial tone. So I'm going to plug in a second phone here. And all I'm trying to illustrate here is this card, this FXS card, is online and ready to go. You dial tone on that one. Hopefully you can hear that in the microphone there. So they're making dial tone, but I don't know. I mean, I want to pick it up. I want to call the other phone, but I can't because we haven't assigned numbers. So let's go ahead and figure that out right now. Now we're in our router, we do our enable. In order to do a configuration on this router, one, we got to know what we're configuring. So let's look at the running config again. So let's show run, because now you're going to see this. We now have voice ports, and again, you know, they're in module 0, which is the big thing on the right side, submodule 0 because it was the very first one on the right, and then port 0, which is the port labeled 0 on the FXS card, and 0 through 3. So these are our 4 ports. Now, we don't actually do any configuration here. There are things you can do on the voice ports. You can set different modes. You can change the ring cadence. There's stuff that's way outside of the scope of this video. So we're not going to do any of that. But what we are going to do is we're going to create dial peers. Now, dial peers are going to be what tells the router how to route calls. So, incidentally, Control-C will just escape me from looking at that configuration. Now, if I want to configure the router, I have to go to the configure terminal. When I do that, you see this change to config right here. You cannot enter any configuration without being in the config terminal. So Control-Z will get you back out of the config terminal. You see I went back to router. What most people do when they want to go in there, they just type conf-t. There are a lot of shortcuts that you can use on Cisco routers, and it just takes learning. I'm, again, not a Cisco guy, but I do use some of the shortcuts because it makes life a lot easier. So let's look at what we have to do. Now, I'm going to create lines that go from 100 to 103. So what that means is you dial a 100, it's going to dial port 0. If you dial a 101, it's going to dial port 1. You could make them 0, 1, 2, 3, and just dial a 0 to make the other phone, or to call the other line, right? It's up to you. You can put whatever numbers you want. You can put actual full 7-digit, 10-digit phone numbers in there. It doesn't really matter. So what we have to do is we have to add a dial peer. So we're going to say, and the dial peer is something we're making. It's not, we're not configuring an interface. We're actually making this thing in the router. So we say dial peer, voice. Now we have to give it a unique number. This is going to be for our number 100, which will be line 0. And then this is POTS, plain old telephone system. So now you see it says config dash dial dash peer, right? Because we're configuring the dial peer. Our phone number, the way that the Cisco system, or really any of the stuff that you use, whether you're doing a PBX or, you know, things, what they're looking for is a pattern. They call it a pattern, right? The number that you're going to dial to get to the other phone. So the destination, now incidentally, you can hit tab and it will autocomplete for you a little bit. Dash pattern. So destination pattern. And that's telling me that this destination, which is going to be phone number 1, which is plugged into port 0, or we'll call it phone number 0, right? This destination pattern, so to dial this phone, is 100. Now, all we've done is say that we have this destination called 100. We haven't assigned it to a phone. So we know our phone is on a port, right? So we're going to say port 0, which is module 0, submodule 0, and port 0. And that's it. So now, if my calculations are correct, we can pick up the phone that's plugged into port 2, even though we haven't configured it. Let's try this out. So if we look at port 2, it's plugged into this phone over here, right? And we can pick up this phone, get our dial tone, and dial 100, and it can already call this other phone. Isn't that neat? Let me hang this up because that'll get annoying. Yeah, that's it. I could have answered that other phone and talked to myself. That's a little boring though. So, yeah. Now, the other phone cannot call this phone yet because we don't have a destination. So, yeah, that's it. Now, when I say exit here, that just takes me back into the normal config. So you'll see that it'll like append a config with if you're in a thing that you're configuring right now. So let's get out of config for a minute and let's show the running config here. I just want you to see this. So now this wasn't here before, right? This is what we put in, and you'll see dial pair voice 100 pots, right? That was the entity that we created called a dial peer, right? And then this is indented a little bit. Like, I don't know, if you do any kind of programming, you'll know indentation is used quite a bit in programming, but I know this isn't a programming, but the indent here shows you that these commands have been entered inside of this dial peer. So our destination pattern and our port is voice port 000, and that correlates to the little card we put in. All right. So now, to speed this up, I have ahead of time written all this stuff down in a text file. Let me grab this real quick. So another thing you can do is you can prepare this stuff ahead of time. I'll get back in our config. Now I'm just gonna, out of this text file, I'm just gonna copy all of this stuff, and I'm just gonna paste it right in this window. Bang. We have now entered dial pair voice 101, our pattern 101, port 1, 102, pattern 102, port 2, and so on. And that's it. Now if I go and show the run config again, I know I'm being probably too thorough for most people here, but you know, it helps to get your head wrapped around how this works. It will help you in the future really understand how the system works, how this router like wants to be told what to do. So I feel like that's important. But anyway, so here now we have all 4 of our dial peers for our 4 ports, which means that this is it. If we just want this router to be able to make phone calls between these 4 ports, we're done. This config is done, unless we turn off the router. Let me show you how to fix that. So let me do a Control-C. That'll get us back to our regular router prompt. Now, there's many different ways to do this. You can copy the running config to the startup config. And it'll say, what file name would you want? Startup config is fine because that's what it's called. So I'm just going to hit enter. See, it's building configuration. Okay, now doing that saved our configuration. So now I can reboot this router, do whatever I want. It's going to be there. For brevity, you can also do WR, which is just write. See, the same exact thing happens. Building configuration, okay. So there are many different commands in a Cisco ecosystem that do the same thing, and there's ways to shorten them. I'll leave it to you to go learn that. It's, if you're really interested in these routers, maybe a fun thing for you, but it wasn't a fun thing for me learning all this stuff. So anyway, now let's test this out and see if this works. So this is our other phone that we called, it was plugged into port 1. Now port 1 should be able to call port 2 by dialing 101. Right? I pick up this phone, I am now talking to the first phone. Let's start with the Ethernet port. So we're going to say we need to get back into configuration mode here. Remember, that's conf T. If I could type. So now we're in the configuration terminal, and to talk to the Ethernet port, we want to say interface fast Ethernet 0, 0. I mean, there's two of them. There's 0, 0, and 0, 1. You can use either one you want, but we're going to use 0, 0. Now you'll just see it says config IF because I'm in an interface. Okay, now, in order to make this thing versatile, it's a little bit of a pain because normally on these ports you would assign an IP address to them. But we want this thing to be able to like walk to somewhere, plug into a network, and just work. So we want this thing to pick up DHCP. It's a little tricky, not that hard. So we have to give it a host name. So we'll say IP DHCP client, because we're a client of the DHCP that's on our router. Host name ISP, Internet Service Provider, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever this host name is, your network's going to see it as that. And hit enter. It didn't complain, so it must have worked. The next thing we want to do is say we have to give the port an IP address. So we say IP address DHCP. Now that's going to make it pick up the address from DHCP. Now that in itself will get the port an address, but it's not going to make it work. In order to make it work, we have to do NATing, right? NATing is network address translation. So we have to take our outside IP, and this is the same thing that happens inside of your house. We have like one IP that's on the internet, and then all of your computers inside of your house have different IPs. And as the traffic comes in and out, it gets what they call NATed, it gets translated. So that outside IP that's destined for your computer will get translated to its IP on the way in, and your packet on the way out will get translated to the public IP as it enters the public internet. That's called NAT. So this port is going to NAT outside traffic. So we say IP NAT outside. You see it pause there for a minute because it actually did some things in there now, and you know it made some settings inside of the router. You see a interface came up, this NVI 0. It has something to do with the way the Cisco NATs. So there's one other thing, and I'm just going to copy this in here. I'll explain to you what it does, but it will just be easier. So let's exit this because we get out of our interface. That's all the config we need to do in our interface. This other command I'm going to paste in here, IPNAT inside. Now this is telling... oh, this is going to complain because I haven't made the list yet. Well, no, it didn't complain. Anyway, IPNAT inside. So this is going to inside the source list. The source list is going to be. Let's put that in there. Copy right now. This we're saying access list to permit 172.16.0.0. What is this? Is just a class. What is it? Class B. Subnet that you can use inside your house. It's like the 192.168. You can use that here. It wouldn't really matter. I just happen to use the 172. And then this is the mask. The mask is telling it the only numbers that we're going to use, that we're going to change, are going to be the last octet here. So that's the mask. So basically, we're giving ourselves the whole 172.16.0 subnet of addresses on the inside. So IPNAT inside source list 2, this is access list 2, right? Interface. So what are we doing with these packets we're natting? We're natting them onto, the outgoing interface, fast Ethernet 0.0, 0/0. This is the important thing, because in order to get NAT inside of the routers to work like you would expect it to work, you have to do this overloading. Now, I'm not going to get into, I don't even know that I 100% understand what this command does, but suffice it to say, this is the magic right here that will make this thing turn into a, like your home router, you know, where it will NAT outside traffic coming in and inside traffic going out. So that's that. And what else do we need to do? For right now, I think that is good, and that should get this router online. Let me grab a Ethernet cable here and plug into the network. I wonder, let's show run. Aha! We're not having technical difficulties. I'm just being silly. The port is administratively down. A lot of times these ports right out of the box will be administratively shut down. This is a security feature so that you know, you don't have ports come up that you don't want to when you have a brand new piece of equipment. Anyway, my dumb, sorry. So easy to fix. We go conf-t, get back in our terminal, and we go interface, fast Ethernet 0, 0. So now we're configuring the interface, and we just say no shut. We should see the interface come up now. Oh, there it is. Fast Ethernet, change the state to up. Oh, isn't that magical? So now this thing should grab DHCP. Let's get back to our major command here, and so there's a, aha, there it is. So it was assigned DHCP address. Of course, it's off the screen a little bit. We can't see it there, but if we want to see that address, because maybe we want to log into it from the outside world at some point, so we want to know what address it has, we can say show IP interface brief. And we will see that fast Ethernet 00 has grabbed address 10, 100, 100, 110. Now, if we're not going to log into it from the outside world, which in a home lab situation you may not have to do, or you know, from your LAN or whatever, you may not need to know that address. But if you do want to log into it from your LAN, you will absolutely need to know that address. So now we have that. So what's next here? I guess the next thing to do is to configure the modem. Now there's a number of things that we have to do in order to get the modem to work. So let's start with, we'll just start at the top. You know, when you dialed into an internet service provider back in the day, you would have to put in a login and password. So we need to put in what the username and password is going to be for our dial-up server. You can make it whatever you want. I'm going to make it something simple just for this. So we need to be back in the configuration terminal. And, no, I don't want the access list. Sometimes copy and paste does not work correctly. Okay. Username is going to be dial-up. I know, this is very original. And the password is going to be dial-up. That's it. So now when you dial into this, you just put username and password, dial-up. You can make it whatever you want. We have to use this loopback address so that the modem can access the router's IP infrastructure in order to get out to the world. It's a lot going on there, but let's just say we need to go interface loopback 0. Now we're creating this interface. This is just like when we did the dial peer. See how you say the protocol on loopback 0 changed to up, because we just made it, right? So we need to give it an IP address. When you assign a static address to a port or a device or an entity inside of a router, you need to give it an IP. So we're going to give it 172.16.0.1, which is the bottom of our subnet that we're creating for our dial-up router. And then we need to give it a subnet mask. So in this mask, this is a subnet mask, if that makes any sense. When you have it the other way around, like the other when we did our IP list, by saying 000, we're saying we want this whole network, I think. And here we're saying we don't care what these are, we're interested in this subnet. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I'm not a big network guy, but I do enough to be dangerous is all. Oh God, it's about to get noisy in here. Let's see what's next. So we've got our loop back. We have to configure our interface now. So I don't remember what that interface was called in this router. It should be async. What are we in port 1? It should be 010. Let's see if we can do that. Interface, async. Doesn't seem to like it. Oh, you know what? Sometimes if you're in an interface, now you can type the whole thing in and it will go to it, but if you're in an interface, the tab complete doesn't work. It's kind of annoying. It should be 010, right? That's the modem? Yeah. Okay, it liked it, it took it. So, now, because we're not assigning, we're using this loopback to assign an IP to this. IP unnumbered, loopback 0. I think what this is telling the interface is that it's going to use loopback 0 as its IP. So we're going to IP NAT inside, again, because this is, the modem is on the inside of our network. We want encapsulation, PPP, which is the point-to-point protocol. You probably remember that from back in the day if you remember dial-up. There's some other things you can and cannot use, like IP, TCP header compression. I think that just saves you a little bit of bandwidth. Dialer, in-band. I'd have to look that up to know what that means. I know that some of these we need. Dialer, idle timeout, 3600. That's the timeout. If you're not using the connection for 3600 seconds, it'll drop you. You could make that longer or shorter if you wanted to. Dialer group, dialer dash group 1, async mode dedicated. A lot of this I just looked up what needed to be in there for this to work. Peer, and I will share this config in the comments so that anybody wants to just download it and you just copy and paste this stuff right into your router. No problem. Peer default IP address pool dial in. Oh, I think that's got to be capitalized. Doesn't. That's the actual pool of addresses. What's the dialer group? I don't remember what the dialer group is now. Anyway, I'm told that this saves you some bandwidth. Not sure. And then the last thing is PPP authentication CHAP. CHAP is the way that, and there's a few different ones here, but I found that CHAP is pretty much compatible with everything. I've dialed in from XP all the way to Windows 10. Haven't had a problem with CHAP. So there's PAP, and there's just the challenge. So how it figures out the login password. That's it. That's it for the interface. So we do need a couple of other things here. I'm just going to copy this to make this easier. Let's go back to there. This one is our pool. Remember, we created right here. We said the pure default IP address, pool, dial in. These are the ones that are going to get assigned to the computers that dial up. Again, you don't have to have 3 of them like I do. It just came from a config where I had 3 modems in a router. You probably really only need 1. We may be close to done here. We do have to do this. So at the end of the config, there are these line configs, and where you can put extra parameters for a card. Our modem's at line 010, so we're going to go to the line, and we want to tell them what we're doing here. So this is a modem dial in. So we want to allow the modem to dial in. You can set other parameters as far as like the port speed and things like that down in these lines. This is like setting the serial port protocols that are going to be used with this device down in the line. So yeah. The other thing we can do, if we want to be able to telnet into our router, is we can set up a password on our virtual terminals. So we could say line VTY 04. I was saying the virtual terminals 0 through 4. You'll see that in the bottom of the config if you run your config, because there's 4 virtual terminals, or 5, 0 through 4, right? So we need a password, and I'm just going to make it Cisco. None of this stuff's going out on the live internet, so you can put login, because we'll allow logins. That will allow us to telnet into the router. The only other thing that we won't be able to do is do enable, unless we do an enable secret. So we'll say enable secret Cisco, and yeah, the login and password is Cisco to do whatever. So now what we can do, if we open up a new is we can say telnet. Oh God, I don't remember. What was the show IP interface brief 10 100 100 110. So now if we go to our new terminal, we could telnet to 10.100.100.110. And it's asking us for a password. It's Cisco. We're in the router, and we say enable. Now that's that enable secret, Cisco. Now we're looking at our configuration through the network and not through the blue cable, the serial cable. So it's more convenient if you want to get in and change things, not to have to go to the router and plug into it all the time. Now obviously you can set up SSH if you need this to be in a secure environment. Telnet is simple to configure, and it's up to you. There's tons of tutorials on doing that stuff out on the web, to get this more secure. So don't yell at me in the comments that your router's not secure, everybody's going to get into it now, they know the password Cisco. I'm not putting this out there. Nobody's going to be able to get in. It's sitting behind a firewall. So let's look over our config a little bit here. We have username dial-up, password dial-up. We got our loopback set up. Obviously our fast Ethernet is getting DHCP. Our network connection is working because now we're logged into it via Telnet, so we know that's working. We have our interface async, which is our modem config all done there. We have our IP pool set up. IP. You probably want to. This is just good housekeeping, just to say no IP HTTP server. That way it won't run a web page out of your router. I mean, there's no reason to do that. There's nothing good to go do over there. It's tons easier to configure these things from the command line. So, oh, let's go back and show our config again. See, okay, yeah, you'll see our enable secret there is encrypted, actually. So if we use something other than Cisco that was not easy to guess, to be more secure. And again, there's lots of ways to lock these routers down where they're a lot safer to be on public networks and things like that. Again, this is a simple configuration. I'm just showing you how to get this thing up and running so that you can use your home lab router to play phones and dial up the internet. I think we're there. So now the moment of truth. There's one thing that we got to do that is a little kludgy, but unless we do it, it won't work. Is we have to come out of one of our ports, right? Because we have to be able to dial to something to get to our modem. This doesn't happen internally, right? So we're going to dial this port from one of these 3 ports, and it's going to go into our modem. Now, if you want to run 4 phones, you can plug 3 of them in here and plug 1 in here because you have the phone pass through, right? And actually, you can plug it in and listen to the internet sounds, the network, the dial-up sounds once it's playing. So that phone there, you'll see. You can hear that my little thing has a dial tone, even though it's plugged into there. So that'll allow you to use 4 phones in your home lab, and it will allow you to have the ability to dial into the modem on line 3. So you're going to use the number 103. So let's get that set up now. Let's see, I got me some cord here. I got a computer over here that's ready to play dial-up with us. I'll just plug that into any old open port. We'll go with like that one there, I guess. Run some wire across the room here. Incidentally, I don't know how all these YouTube people do this one-handed. It's a definite crutch, so yeah. Like here on the back of our good old Tough Book, we still have a actual dial-up modem hole. Get that plugged in. Get logged into our computer here. Come on, do it. Yeah, look at that. So, all right, let me take that down. Now, I'm going to open this up, and that one's not set up right. You know what? Let's go ahead and set this up from scratch. That way, I think Home Lab is set up, but let's start a new config so you can see how to do it, because a lot of people don't remember. So we go to all programs, and this is what, Windows XP, I think. Accessories, communications, network connections. No. So then we're in this window here. We can right click in here. Or no, how do we do that? I think I messed up. Oh, here we go. File, new connection. Next, connect to the internet. Yeah, we want to connect to the internet. Oops, did that too many times. I want to set up my connection manually for a dial-up connection. I will hit next, and I'll be connect using a dial-up modem. Next, ISP name is, it could be anything. Who? The phone number is 103, right? Because we're in that fourth port. And the username is dial up. The password is dial up. And I gotta confirm it. Dial up. Like so. Hit next. Finish. So now I have my connection here. I should just hit dial. Since I plugged a phone in, we heard the phone ring too. We hear those old familiar sounds. Hopefully this works the first time and I don't have to dinker around with it. Oh, look at that. There it is. Your poo is now connected at 33.6. So you're not going to break any land speed records, but if you go, where's home at here? FrogFind is your friend. There are some dial-up friendly websites out there, but frogfind.com is a great place to start because it will actually translate normal sites into things that you could do on an old computer with dial-up. So most of the internet now is like, secure sockets and SSH, SSL, and all of that. I don't know if you can see, but this is still good old-fashioned HTTP. In fact, this is a Netscape browser that I'm using here. If you see Netscape, it's an older version of Netscape browser, and it seems to be really happy. This is actually a pretty good setup for playing home lab dial-up. Yeah, so we could go to like, geez, I don't know, where would we want to go? Like, how about Hackaday? Let's see how bad it hacks that up. And let's say Ribbit. And you see that it's bringing stuff up in friendly to look at ways. So it's actually translating Hackaday's website into something that we can digest with this slow connection. It's reasonably usable if you can read. I don't know, they're this generation nowadays probably don't do a lot of reading anymore, but there you go. We are, in not very long. Obviously, it was a little bit longer because we had to, we had to make a video. But this setup, if you just follow what I did and, put that config in there, like I'll drop the config in the comments here, and you'll be able to just copy and paste the sections in, and you should be able to have your router up and running in less than an hour. Biggest thing is going to be finding the iOS's, obviously copyrighted material. I can't give it to you, but I can tell you it's not extremely hard to find. So just take a look around on the internet, and that'll be a bit. So yeah, I guess that's about it for this show. We took a simple router here and added a couple of cards to it, and now we're able to play with our old POTS phones and dial up internet, which is pretty cool. I know I had a lot of fun setting this stuff up, and it was a little frustrating trying to figure it all out to begin with, but man, once you get this going, it's a lot of good fun. So all my YouTube friends out there, enjoy your home lab dial-up systems. I wish you nothing but the best of luck. I'll try and keep an eye on the comments for any questions that anybody has. Hopefully I went over everything thorough enough that you'll just be able to get that bad boy going. Again, I would try to stay to like 2600, 2800 series routers. They're really cheap. This one here, I'm going to be selling this at our club meeting for like $100, and basically that's what I got in it, and a little bit of time. but there's not, you know, the cards are cheap if you buy the right cards, you know, and all that. So in some future videos, I'm going to go into what my crazy massive home lab dial-up system is doing. I'll give you a little sneak preview of that one, but it's kind of in a little bit of a shambles right now. But this one here, I've got a 8-port modem, and I've got a 24-port FSX card, one of those big network module ones. I've also got some serial ports coming out of there. That's these green cables. And in the end, the plan for that is to be able to have 8 computers dialed into 8 different things, whether it be dial-up ISP or dialing into those serial lines. And I've already gotten this to work, so I'll definitely be doing a video on it coming up. But dialing into those serial lines, and then we can pipe those serial lines into other things like Raspberry Pis that are running old BBS software, or even retro computers that are running BBS software. So, you know, keep an eye on the channel, like and subscribe if you like the video. I certainly do appreciate the support, and hopefully we'll see you again later on.